I'm Vladimir Morrison, and I guess at the moment I am music director at St. Catherine Orthodox Mission in Carlsbad. Of course, I've directed choirs in a number of other situations in different places, worked with the music department for a number of years. And my other hat that I wear is Musica Rustica, that some of you may know. It's a music publisher. That's kind of, I think, enough for this session to put us into context. We have not conferred, so Tracey, I don't know what you have, may have prepared, or I don't want to preempt anything that you might have ready.
I haven't prepared. I was told not to prepare a formal presentation, so I'm perfectly willing to only be an addendum to what you have to say.
Tracey.
Okay, and I just simply prepared some things for my own benefit, and then it turned out that it turned into a little presentation. So let me just talk, and please feel free to interrupt the stream of talking and jump in at any time. Let's see if I can get this part to work. Okay, so church singing before, during, and after pandemic. Let me just briefly tell you about our situation at St. Catherine. We're a mission in everything except for building. We are a mission only in that we don't have a building of our own. We have a full-time priest. We have a congregation of about between 120, 130 people on a given Sunday, 60 people for Vespers, and we're blessed with a choir that has changed in number, fluctuated from between 14 and 17 people, all of whom are fairly good sight readers, good musicians, but we do have the situation that we have a lot of mobility in and out of the parish, which affects the choir. And so before the pandemic struck, we experienced a number of personnel changes that forced us to adopt a kind of flexibility to our approach in singing. Whereas before we had 4 sopranos, 3 altos, 2 tenors, and 6 or 7 basses. All of a sudden, we lost almost all of our women's voices, so that we had 3 women on the regular roster, and then a bunch of men. And that is a kind of I'm told, unique situation to have in a lot of situations. And so we had to experiment very quickly with how do we sing as a men's chorus. And we did so sometimes with an alto part and sometimes without an alto part. We explored a lot of 3-part singing, melody, harmony, and bass. And we also did a certain amount of melody with bass, chant with Edison. So we were kind of in a fortunate situation that when the pandemic struck and we had to, in the 3rd week of Great Lent, we had to stop singing as a choir and meeting as a congregation, we really focused upon our chant-based repertoire. And by this, I mean hymns that had a melody at its core. And obviously, when I had to sing alone, that's the melody I would sing. The great benefit is that this chant-based repertoire works with all kinds of combinations, no matter how many singers were present. as it turned out, after singing services alone for a couple of weeks, our priest's daughter, Lucy Cuneo, returned from college in Michigan because the college had closed. So now we sang in a two-choir formation. And it may seem silly if you have only a couple of singers to think in terms of choir, but it actually is a two kleros formation. And that is two singers singing alternately. The benefit of this, of course, is that just 1 second. I have to do technical thing here. I'm being told that my battery is about to die. Yeah, could you help me out? What we found out is that, of course, two singers singing is, or the two kleros formation is a kind of a foundational principle of Orthodox church singing. What that means is that the two singers or two choirs sing alternately or antiphonally. And it's a great way to negotiate long services from a vocal standpoint. This was brought very clear to us during the 12 Gospels, during Holy Week, Lamentations service on Holy Saturday Matins, and the Paschal service. And so you end up with, at the end of the service, you end up with half of your voice remaining instead of no voice remaining at all. During the pandemic, we also used a little ingenuity to do some composite ways of doing the composite Old Testament readings and the Paschal Agape Vespers reading. We have about 13 or 14 languages. And so we figured out how to do that using Zoom. And we also had a children's choir that was meeting every week after liturgy prior to the pandemic. And we continued those lessons on a weekly basis with the kids. Of course, there are lots of limitations, as we found out very quickly with Zoom. But we still had a pretty good time and continued that until the end of the school year. So at this point, let me just pause and let anybody else kind of chime in on those two particular topics.
We pretty much did the same thing when the lockdown happened. We were just reduced to one singer just before Holy Week, and we continued that through Holy Week because the one singer wanted to do it. And so Sundays we have, even though we're still not open, we're a little bit behind here, some other people. During the weekdays we have 25 people in church, but on weekends we still don't have not very many people in church, but we still have one singer, basically. And we've done a couple of services with one singer on one side, one singer on the other side. And that works out very, very well. It just makes so much sense the way that the services are constructed to be able to alternate like that.
I might contribute something here.
I really liked the one singer. I miss the choir very much, but maybe it's just me, but it's been a nice little break from the usual, just because of the chant, the way that the chanting's been done. It's so beautiful and simple, and it probably works better for streaming than a large choir. The miking and the technical miking a choir just would be much more complicated, far beyond our resources anyway. So Tracey, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Tracey Edison from Portland, Oregon, and been directing the choir here for quite some time. We went to a two-side, two-kleros format. I think I didn't have it set up during Holy Week. I can't remember exactly when I did what, but I went to a more kind of formalized, structured approach to a two-sided, up to two singers on a part. Of course, we have certain restrictions that we have through the diocese as well as through the local authorities. And I got in touch with my friend Nikita Simmons, who's a lead chanter in the Old Believer community, where they have kept up that practice for quite some time, and just bounced some ideas off him, got some ideas from him about how they divide things up. And while I couldn't use all of that as just something to fit into, it gave me a model, so I didn't have to invent anything for myself. And as Vlad said, that's the traditional format of singing throughout the Orthodox world, and the order of services somewhat presume this alternate singing. We've kept that going as much as possible. I set up a Google Sheets through Google Drive so that singers can sign up for particular slots. I divided each side has a lead singer and then an assistant, so not all 4 slots are there for every vigil and every liturgy, but frequently we have 4 singers. I usually find that when they try to break into 4-part harmony, everything slows down pretty much right away. So we try to keep away from that until maybe the end of the service. But focusing on chant melodies, focusing on the lead singer starting and then everybody joining in. I even sent out a few instructions to the congregation so they kind of knew what was going on, how we were thinking of it. And we're still working to perfect it, but it's worked out pretty well. That's all I'll say for right now.
Vlad, you want to pick up where you left off?
Okay. Yes. I should mention then that at Pentecost, we were able to go to 4 singers. And by rearranging some of our furniture, we worship in a very nicely appointed warehouse. And so we have a section, I don't know, about 8 feet by 20 feet, I would say, which is the kleros. It's raised 1 step, and it's on the left side of the church. So we were able to space out 4 singers in that space with what we felt fairly confident and comfortable that we were within the guidelines allowed by the civil authorities and the church authorities, and so that 4-part section arrangement with 4 sections actually worked quite nicely. Until last week, again, we were told by the governor of California that church singing is not allowed in churches, and so we were back down to 1 singer. But that turned out to be kind of a false alarm. I guess Liturgical Benjamin had some legal opinion on that, and they said it was not enforceable to limit the Orthodox to no singing in church. So the last, let's see, I had before, after, oh, there's my fumble fingers. Let's see. Okay. What did we learn from all of this? First of all, is that not all singers have equal ability. And so we had to, even in constituting our quartet or our two kleros formation with only 2 singers, we had to naturally make some decisions about who was going to be participating in that. Because both on the level of simply singing services, whether it's for streaming or for the congregation cohorts that are there in limited numbers, it has to be done well, and it has to be it has to present itself well. That's not to say that going forward that individual singers can't grow. They certainly can grow, and this is an opportunity to reflect on that a bit and to identify where our singers are as vocalists, as musicians, and to provide them with opportunities for both for vocal development, for improving themselves, and also for their musicianship, growth as musicians, sight reading, the ability to carry a part on their own. We did do, starting with Palm Sunday, we did some virtual choir projects. We had a videographer, professional videographer, and a sound engineer in our parish. And so we quickly learned how to do virtual choir. And this turned out to be, so we did the Troparion for Palm Sunday, then we did some Christ is Risens, we did the Paschal Canon. And these projects very quickly focused everyone's opinion on exactly where they were as independent singers, because if you haven't done virtual choir, it's where every singer has to record their track individually, and while listening to a master click track, which is something I provided. I recorded each hymn singing the melody, and then that could be muted while other people, all the other singers, sang along in time, and then all those tracks got mixed together. I'm sure you've seen, if you haven't done it, you've seen there's lots and lots of examples of that on the internet. If you're specifically interested in what we did at St. Catherine, you can find it on our website, stcatherineorthodoxchurch.org, and you can hear what we did. So that was a very, very quick and learn as we went along lesson on how to do virtual choir. If you are streaming, of course, and there's been lots of good presentations by people who are much more technically fast. So we have a very simple setup. We just have an iPhone. It's a very latest model, best model with fancy microphones and three cameras and all that. But we don't try to do any special miking of the sound or anything. We probably could improve the sound quality, but for what we were trying to do, we looked at it and we figured that it was sufficient. But do a sound check, and the sound check will reveal a lot of things. It'll reveal if the singers are pronouncing the words in such a way that they can be understood. It'll bring out any issues that might exist with balance of voices, if somebody's too loud or too soft. And so that's a good thing to learn from. The other thing that we found out that not all singers can function independently, even if they are vocally able to carry their own part. Some people have distinct challenges when it comes to navigating books. So since we are socially distanced when we sing in as a quartet, it's not so easy to for the choir director to run over and make sure that the basses are on the right page and singing the right version of whatever hymn you happen to be singing. We had some challenges with that, and some singers are, they kind of move up and down the totem pole of availability and employability, shall we say, for this purpose. As an opportunity, of course, this is a time when the choir director can work with each singer or with the group as a whole and go over the order of services, go through the structure of how the books are set up, however you have it set up, That's something to bear in mind.
Vlad?
Yes.
A question. Somebody asked, what kind of software did you use for the virtual choir?
To put it together, it was Final Cut Pro. Other than that, we just used iPhones and the video function on the iPhone.
Okay. Another question. And you touched on it. I mean, the virtual choir is part of the answer to the question that Kathy asked. In addition to singing at the services, part of the choir is the community and the relationships among choir members and committee of choir members to attend and sing, commitment of choir members to attend and sing at services. What can be done during these times so that we don't lose that, both the sense of commitment to the choir and the relationships, and also some technical skill? I mean, you know, when you don't sing for a while, you kind of get rusty. You have either you or Tracey have some comments along those lines?
Well, in terms of the community thing, I've not made that yet a big focus. I'm keying off of the sense that I get from the choir itself as well as from the parish as a whole. So one of the things that I tried early on, both in my teaching as well as in my music ministry at church, is to not try to pretend like we can do things normal online. We can't do things normal online. I've even asked everybody, including the priest, to stop using the term choir. So we're not a choir, we can't be a choir, we're church singers, you know, and we've just totally reorganized it. I am starting to have now online short rehearsals because I need to teach some new literature. This is also revealing that some aspects of the literature, not a lot of it. Am I still on here?
You are.
Okay. Suddenly my screen went off. Okay. That some aspects of my literature lacked good chant-based repertoire. So I'm teaching a couple new Truba hymns, and I'll have a short rehearsal tonight, for instance. I've done several video instructions, especially since we have several great feasts coming up that have some of the most complicated music, at least our repertoire here has some of the most complicated repertoire coming up, and I'm not just going to back off these chants just because they're more difficult. So I'm making video lessons and posting them to a YouTube channel, and then I'm sending out the scores electronically. And actually, the choir is responding very positively to that. And there's, I think, a sense of greater responsibility amongst those that are keeping alive their commitment. There's several choir members that I haven't really heard much from, not a lot. Some of them who maybe have breathing issues or more elderly obviously aren't comfortable coming out, and I'm trying to make sure choir singers understand that we need them and they are encouraged without at all feeling pressure to do something they don't feel that they should be doing. So I try to make that very clear. So far this summer, signing up for singing at services is somewhat freewheeling. And I did tell the choir at our last virtual meeting, I said, come September, I need to have a formal roster of who is going out of their house and who will be available to sing. And I need to start scheduling things so that the personnel for services is more evenly applied. But I'm not doing that this summer. We're still getting used to things. And so that's some of the dynamics I've been trying to employ here.
That's a good answer to a question that was just asked from Deacon Peter Simcoe. I think you just answered it. How do we prevent a sense of favoritism from cropping up, a sort of clericalism in the cleros due to the need for singers who can at least, I'd say not at least, who can manage to get through the services?
Yeah, Father, I found that the opposite to be the problem. I'm trying to encourage people who are a little bit more, I'll say, shy, to say, hey, come forward. You can make this work. And when they've sung through a whole liturgy or even a vigil with me, It may not have gone perfectly, but I'm sure to encourage them and say, hey, you stuck it through and made it worth it. Oh, I didn't do well here and here. I said, yeah, but that wasn't the whole thing, you know. And so really try it. People know who the lead singers are in the choir. The what I want to do is encourage people who are in that second tier and maybe even third tier to come forward. And we've had some of that, which I've been very grateful for.
That's really good to hear. Does anybody, somebody asked, does anybody sing with a mask on? And secondly, are any choir directors still standing in front of the choir? I mean, where you have a choir, obviously you don't have a choir.
Let me go ahead and address that too before I don't want to talk too much here, but so there is no sense of gathering the choir as a four-part mixed singing group with a director. So that model is out of my mind, and that's not what we do. We have two areas up toward the front of the church that function actually like small little side chapels. So they're perfect for us to be able to stand there, and then with their backs to the congregation, that frees the entire nave up to people standing without being around singers, and that would take up extra space we couldn't fill with people. So we've been able to open up the nave on Sunday mornings to a congregation of up to about 20 people, I think. So you have about 25 total that'll be there. And no, there's no standing up in front and directing. You have a lead singer on each side, and each one of them has an assistant if all four positions are filled. And then any little directing that you have to do, you know, to your assistant, or sometimes I'll look across the way, and if I'm the lead singer, and indicate to the other side. I also publish and my choir is used to this because I give them service orders with what settings we're going to be singing and any special instructions. So I've had to come up with and publish a fairly detailed listing for the vigil as well as for the Divine Liturgy, so that we know which hymns we're singing together and which hymns we're alternating. Because that's just not something that, while we've done a lot of alternate singing, it's not a habit. And so we tweak that as we go. So they get a fairly detailed order of service with instructions, not only about what's going to be sung, but who's singing, who's starting. And that's proven to be helpful, actually.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to do.
Vlad, Eric, do you want to continue with your really excellent PowerPoint?
Oh,
I'm finding it extremely helpful.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let me see. I guess I need to share that again. Okay. Well, so the next point has to do with going forward. Okay, we already did that. Yes, where does one find good sources of chant-based music? Well, I just want to use this opportunity, and I don't know if you can see this if I hold this up. Yeah. This extraordinary volume edited by our colleague Benedict Sheehan at St. Tikhon's, which contains everything one might possibly need to sing a divine liturgy any time of the year, any feast, weekday, Sunday, whatever. And it is full of melodies with instructions on how to polyphonize them by adding harmony and a bass part. So that's one excellent source of chant-based material. And of course, we're familiar with many of these, many of the settings that are in here, many of the melodies from four-part settings, but somehow in our collective experience here in the Orthodox Church in America, we've been kind of, in most cases, invested in a four-part model. And so this comes though at a almost providentially came at a time when people, if you don't have this as a source of singing, this is an excellent thing for divine liturgy. For Vespers and Matins or Vespers and Vigil, if you serve Vigil, the situation is not quite as convenient, except that to say that the Vespers volume is in production. Perhaps Deacon Peter Simcoe knows more about that even than I do, what stage that's at. So there will be other collections like this, Vespers and Matins, which has long been a real area of need in the church. But a lot of good material is available in the on the OCA website in terms of the chant tutorials that are up there. And this, again, is perhaps a well-kept secret. I've encountered a number of people who don't know about those chant tutorials and don't know that they're even up there. But if you haven't been and haven't gotten familiar with them, I highly recommend them. And what they will, of course, tell you is where the melody is in the four-part common chant and Kievan chant settings that we're familiar with. If you are singing one melody only, I would recommend the Kievan settings that are up there. They aren't as convenient. These are the Boris Litkovsky arrangements. They are not as convenient if you are trying to sing in two parts or three parts only. They work either as a single melody line, which is in the top voice, or they work very well as four-part, but you need four parts. For the common chant, the obichod, the people often lament the fact that the obichod is so ubiquitous, and why is it that we're singing Bachmetiev, something that was done in the 19th century, and why is it still around? Isn't there something else? And the one great virtue of the obichod is that it can be sung in one part, two parts, three parts, four parts, six parts, eight parts, if you have them, and has traditionally been sung that way in different places in the church, from Alaskan villages to great cathedrals. They can all make use of that, and that's part of the reason for its survival. It's kind of inherent simplicity. And so the question is, in obichod, where is the melody? In the arrangements we're familiar with on the OCA website, for stihira melodies, the melody is not in the top voice. It's usually, in fact, in almost every case that I can think of, it's in the alto. Then the question becomes, okay, now if you're going to sing the alto part, what range are you going to sing it in? Are you going to sing it at the pitch that it's notated in, or some other pitch? And I find, for example, for my voice, I have to transpose the alto part usually about a fourth up. I'm sort of a second tenor high baritone. That's where that melody lies most comfortably for my voice. Your experience, of course, may be different. And but just realizing that all those things that we see on the page, printed on the page, the key signatures, the ranges are all flexible and can be transposed up and down as the need arises. So just to kind of summarize our experience, we don't know. One of the things that I was running through my mind when I was listening to Tracey is, yes, we don't want to also, psychologically, I have not invested a great deal of attention into how to manage the limited singing. I guess I'm thinking optimistically that this is all going to pass us in the near future, and we will return to some degree of normalcy where we will have real congregations, real choirs. But having said that, what can we do now to help ourselves and our singers grow musically? One is to vocalize and to sing daily. There's all kinds of online materials. Just a basic Google search for vocal exercises will bring up a whole slew of opportunities that one can use. And it's, but I think the less experienced singer who may not have ever had private voice lessons, for example, may really benefit from having the choir director give them some basic warm-up, some basic vocalises that it's like doing exercises. If you were told to, okay, drop and do 30 push-ups right on the spot, many people couldn't do that. But if you do any kind of physical conditioning, and singing is simply one of those physical routines that we do. And so it's very important to keep the muscles in good condition. One other opportunity to sing daily is to simply go to the OCA website again and look at the daily hymns. There are Troparia and Cantakia for every saint, or nearly every saint of the day. Lots of musical settings. There are some unusual things there. For example, the Serbian chant settings by Peter Drobac. Wonderful melodies if you want to challenge yourself as a singer, and I've recommended that to singers who want to just find something to sing daily. Sight reading, that's another excellent opportunity to look at some unfamiliar material. Well, it's familiar, but it's not completely familiar. So if you know your basic tones, but there's a Troparia to a saint on the OCA website, practice singing that, practice just sight reading that. Or try a slightly different melody. If you know the Obichod tone 4, try the abbreviated Greek chant Obichod, or chant for the Troparian melody, and that will keep your faculties of sight reading sharpened. Those of you who may have attended the forum that we had, the International Society of Orthodox Church Music forum that took place at St. Vladimir Seminary a few weeks ago, may have been aware of Juliana Woodill's excellent presentation on solfege and sight singing using Obichod. And this summer, I know Juliana is working to flesh out that curriculum. So if you're interested, you can contact her and perhaps arrange a demonstration. I know she's planning to have some online workshops for sight reading during the summer, and you can contact her. And for the knowledge of services, same way, the OCA website, again, one of those neglected areas of the website. I know that David Durlock worked very hard to create those outlines of services, and that should just be part and parcel of every choir director's knowledge, and with your help and guidance as choir directors, all the singers should have those structures of basic services kind of down pat. So perhaps, depending on how long we have to do all this with limited attendance and isolation, these are opportunities to engage our singers, to engage our choirs, however we want to call them, Tracey, choirs or singers. But there are plenty of opportunities, I think, to do some online gathering and to introduce people to those resources that are there, and to move forward. Number 3, I said, if you need help, where to go? Well, as you may know, the music department of the OCA has recently undergone some changes of leadership. There is a new structure of the committees of the OCA, and Father Thomas Soroka is the overall overseer over all the committees and all the departments. The music department has a new lead. They call him a project lead, and that is Philip Ritchie, who is a recent graduate of St. Vladimir Seminary, if I'm not mistaken. I think he graduated this spring. And so he is the kind of administrative head who's working with the folks at the Chancery on music department projects. So if you have a question that has to do with the music department, I'm sure if you emailed the Chancery, they would route it to Philip. He's a very bright and sharp young man who is dedicated to serving the church. And so, and from then he can route your questions, specific questions, to any of us who have been working with the department for quite some time, such as Father Lawrence and myself. And once the pandemic passes, if we do all these things, we will be that much stronger for it. We will be better musicians, we will have better knowledge of the services, and we will move on from there.
Can I chime in with something here?
Sure.
I think knowing my own community, choral community, I think if an all clear was sounded this week, you know, by the governor and by the bishop and so forth, I would still probably have 50% of my choir that'd be very leery about coming back, you know. So I'm trying to make changes that can be long term, and I haven't yet decided, but some of these are already were in the back of my mind anyway. I'm a little bit. I was already questioning our kind of standard approach to church singing and choirs and the role choirs have. And I'm a choral man. I love choral music. But I found it to be limiting in certain respects. And I'm trying to allow this to be a time where it helps me flesh that out in my own mind, my own viewpoint, my own leadership. And the question won't be what do I keep going forward. The question will be what do I drop.
Mm-hmm.
What of what I'm doing am I not going to continue? I'm probably going to continue a basic way of what I'm doing now, and then add singers to that and add layers to it. But I'm thinking this may, I haven't decided on that. But I'm strongly considering the new model I've gone to as a basic keep, and then adding the more harmonic richness and the fullness of the choir to that. How to make that happen, I have no idea, and it's not apropos here anyway. But I'm trying to make decisions that will serve me long term. I'm trying to not be in crisis mode.
We're doing the same thing. For example, we may have a women's quartet sing some liturgies or vigils, or a men's quartet, which we already have, and maybe have two, mixed choirs on one side and the other side, or maybe a smaller choir on one side, a larger. There's all kinds of opportunities, but also in my mind is the thinking that if we're going to continue to stream, And our shut-ins here really, really appreciate the live stream. And we've invested money in equipment. The singing has got to be better than what we've done. I mean, even if we say we have a pretty good choir, um, it won't be, unless we practice and reconfigure, it's not going to be as good as it needs to be if it's live. It's just going to be embarrassing. So a lot of work needs to be done on our side if we're going to continue to live stream with a full choir.
I just noticed, by the way, somebody by the name of Audra, I think, if I saw it correctly, who said, "How lucky you all are." Audra, you may be working under a false impression. And you may be working under the impression that we have all these fabulously trained singers from which to draw. I can't speak for Vlad. I can speak for myself. I do not. and I've actually, what we've ended up doing is greatly simplifying. And so if we've presented something here that makes it sound like it's unattainable, we haven't presented it correctly.
Yeah. We don't have a whole herd of like super talented singers. We have 3 guys that could sing a liturgy by themselves. And yes, all our limitations are out there on Facebook for everyone to see. So if you want to check out what other people are doing, just go to those live streams. We're all doing our best and somewhat improvising as we go because things change so much. I think we're kind of out of time, right?
The lovely thing about not being able to read music is if you're singing by yourself and you make a mistake, nobody need know. You just take the melody where your mind took it. You know, how many times do I change tones in the middle of a stickerone? You know, if I'm singing by myself. I mean, there has to be a certain flexibility in our church singing, and that gets into a whole other area. But it can be, we have to be really careful about putting ourselves into too rigid of a format, or not only the current situation, but the Orthodox services as a whole can be really overwhelming. That's a whole other, that's a whole nother discussion, you know. And I'd love to help somebody out if you're feeling like you're totally overwhelmed. Feel free to contact me privately. I think I can help. I think I can help dig you out. It shouldn't be quite so rigid.
Yeah. There's help out there for constructing.
Yeah, I will. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to reiterate what Tracey said too. Sometimes people contact me privately, and that's a major need we have, I think, in our church as a whole. And I'm not even speaking of the OCA alone, but in this country. We have people who are very educated, who are very qualified. We don't have a good system of matching the needs with the expertise that's out there. And hopefully that's something that we'll be working on as time goes on, with God's help and with guidance from our hierarchs and our clergy. Yes, Father Lawrence, the one thing that we have not put a premium on in our churches, we have not done, we're not a media-oriented church. We don't have a highly professional staff with thousands of dollars of high-tech equipment that put on a media show every single Sunday to an audience of 1,000, comfortably seated in stadium seating. We're just not. That's not where we are. But does that mean that our services are it's just us poor little folks here, and we don't read music, and we don't know how to sing, and we don't know how to paint icons, and we don't know how to make vestments, and we don't know how to build a church? That's where we just have to cut that kind of thinking. Really, not allow ourselves to fall into that trap. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's the musicians or the church singers who end up being in that. We could have a whole discussion, we could have a whole conference about that going forward, how that came to be and why it is so. But we do, in fact, when we have to build a church, we hire an architect. Sometimes a good architect, sometimes not as good an architect, but we do hire the experts. When the roof is leaking, we hire a roofer and we pay them top dollar because the roof needs to be fixed. Icons, same thing. We hire an iconographer who is a master, hopefully. Why not church singing? Why does church singing not deserve that same kind of approach, the same striving for excellence, and one might add the similar kind of financial investment that it requires to hire a competent, it's amazing what one competent music educator can do in a community. How many children that person can teach, how many adults that person can teach, how many choir members can be trained, how many congregations can be encouraged to participate. All those things are possible, but you have to have at least one person who is musically qualified and capable, and who can devote a reasonable amount of attention professionally to those activities. A lot of planning goes into all those activities, as just even right now, Tracey saying, you know, yes, it takes a lot of time to put together, a lot more time to put together instructions for 4 singers singing in 2 klirasi than just simply showing up and saying, okay, number 1, number 2, when you're standing in front of the choir and everybody, you know, that's the normal yes. Picture. It just requires a lot of attention and a lot of time. And that's my soapbox. I apologize for I will climb down.
But it pays off.
Soapbox now.
All that pays off in the long run. It really
yes.
does pay dividends.
Well, let me jump in here if I might. I think our next session, which is very brief and a wrap up, is supposed to be at on the East Coast anyway, 4:45. So that's 9 minutes from now. Archdeacon Joseph, did you find the little survey thing that we hadn't been able to find before?
Meaning the survey that you said you sent to me, or the ability to survey? Well,
again, there were 3 questions that we were supposed to submit all of our attendees to in each session. And
yeah, no.
All right. Well, we won't worry about it. We won't worry about it here. Vlad, as you were giving your final pitch there, I mean, the thing I often say in front of groups that when we have such a low standard for ourselves, is it almost feels like we're saying, well, we're only Orthodox. How could we do that?
Yeah.
You know, we're just Orthodox, which of course is something I hate, and it's clear you do as well, and I think probably most of us do. So why don't we, with your permission, Father Lawrence, let's wrap this up, shall we?
Let's wrap it up. Yeah.
Thank you.
26. It's almost 20 till. So
yeah. Great. Thanks everybody for coming. And one final sort of global session to see what we all learned, and then we'll go on to other things. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe, for making this all happen.
Thank you.
Well, we had a lot of help.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful.
Thanks, Tracey. Thank you, Vlad. It was excellent comments.